Hello! So I think we can all agree that this week has been a long week, especially if you are British. We cracked Theresa May, she sobbed. It's Sunday, tonight the results of the EU elections that I've been talking about on my channel come out. There is no better remedy for real life limbo than a good book. Thank you to everybody who is either in no way concerned about the EU elections or isn't British and put up with lots of my very British centric content the last few videos. It felt very important to me to cover, and I felt very saddened that lots of people didn't cover it, so I felt like I should. But I do apologise that those videos probably weren't relevant to everybody. So while I hope you enjoyed me smearing my face with what is essentially blue Vaseline and trying to act like an adult in front of Gina Miller, I hope this video will be not only relevant to all of us, but a calming influence on turbulent times. Also, I'm constantly trying to clear my shelves of books that I think I will love, but in reality you'll probably only just like or not get round to at all. And while I think it's cool to like have books around me, it's getting kind of stressful. And also this year I think I've read so many incredible books that I actually kind of only want to read incredible books. There's books like A Guide to Being Born and The Overstory by Richard Powers that I've just treasured and been like, oh. And I know that I've put off reading or rereading those books because I've been wading through all these books that don't truly speak to my tastes or my heart, but I felt like some kind of weird internet duty to read. But no more. I'm determined to get out of my weird, like, soldier-like duty to read all the books. I think it's really important to read all the experiences and listen to all the opinions, but that doesn't mean all of the books. I also think because I just, in my career, like, meet so many authors, I feel awful if I give away a book without reading it. And I just want everyone's books to be heard and reviewed. But I'm only one person and I can only do so much. And I think that I need to let go of my, like, human need to rescue every unreviewed or forgotten book. So essentially, I've got 10 books behind me. I'm going to tell you about the book, I'm going to read a chapter for it, and I'm going to tell you whether I'm going to chuck it or hold it close. It often doesn't occur to me that I could just read a chapter of a book and then decide whether to keep it or not. I don't know why I've spent hours looking at the cover and the blurb and being like, I could just open it. So here we are. This is The Firestarters by Jan Carson. So this book I heard about when I visited Penguin Island. The editor there told me about it and sent me a copy. I remember feeling very positive about the premise of this book, but never actually got round to reading it. The city is in flames and the authorities are losing control. One man fears the hatred in his adolescent son's eyes. Another suspects his daughter is capable of unspeakable terrors. Who will these two fathers choose to protect? I feel like every book you look at could go two ways. Here's the two ways I think this could go. My hope is that this book is a gritty, close human look at violence in Ireland and teaches me a little bit about that and is very like close up and real. My fear is that it is a whimsical YA book with gratuitous violence in it for no reason. I might read you out the first line as well because I think that's quite interesting. Jonathan, your ears are not the same as mine. It has taken me 3 months to notice this. I am sorry. Well, that was very, very good. I was almost going to put this in the charity box because I was just like, maybe I'll never get around to it. But like reading the first chapter, I'm like, oh! The first chapter is just 6 pages and it's about a man describing his baby and looking after his baby, but also noticing how the baby is developing and admitting slowly to himself that it's probably not his. I hope your ears can hear, but they may already be ringing with your mother's songs. I will wait and I will watch your mouth. Your mouth is where the world will begin or end. I cannot bear to look at it. I am watching like a clock even now. I am waiting to see what will come of it, to see if you are hers or mine. Holy shit. That is some good writing. I will be keeping that. Coming for you. Come back. Okay, interesting. The second book on the list is one that I've had for a really long time. It is Silver, Return to Treasureland by Andrew Motion. I love this cover. It's very similar to another cover that I love of a book I haven't read. There is Stuart, hello. This book, We the Drowned, which I've heard amazing things about and I would love to get to, but look at that spine. So I kind of kept it because I love the cover and the foiling. I really want to read more about pirates because I'm very keen on them right now. So I can't bear to get rid of this, but it also never feels urgent enough to pick up, and I'm scared that if I get rid of it I'll forget it exists and then never read it. July 1802. You know it's going to be dramatic when it starts with a month, and then a year. Sorry, I've just read so many fucking blurbs at this point. I'm so disillusioned. Young Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver's daughter Natty set off in the footsteps of their fathers. The lure of hidden treasure and the thrill of ocean odyssey gives way to terror of the nightingale reaches his destination. Treasure Island is not uninhabited as it once was. So let's do the first chapter and see what happens. Part 1, The Temptation. Chapter 1, My Father's Orders. In these days, I did my father's bidding. I would leave my bed at 6 o'clock every morning, tiptoe past his door so as not to disturb his slumber, then get to work as quietly as possible among the foul tankards, glasses, plates, knives, gobs of tobacco, broken stems and other signs of interrupted pleasure that awaited me in the trap room below. Very long first sentence, but we'll go with it. I don't know, I think I've forgotten a very crucial fact, is that I don't really very easily connect with historical fiction. And this is written in a very historical fiction kind of way, which is fair. But I just think in general that I am in love with the idea of this book, but from the first chapter it doesn't seem like the kind of writing I really like. It was very like, this is here, that is here, this is over here. Now he is walking down the steps. Know how the character is feeling or what they're thinking, or like the character's clever interpretation of what they're doing, or descriptions that tell them something about what's going on in their head. It's very like detached, which is what a lot of historical fiction tends to be, which I don't know is like an essential of the genre or just like a trope that many writers just happen to do. I think that I won't get the in-jokes in this because I haven't read Treasure Island. I don't know when I will read Treasure Island, and I just think it's not the one. I need to fight for the one. It's kind of like yes, all people are very nice, but you can't date them all. They can't all be your best friends. You have to choose, otherwise nobody gets any time. By the way, I am wearing a book dress. It was gifted to me by Joni Clothing. I will leave a link to them below. It's not a spawn, but they were very nice. He sent me a book dress, so I was like... The Marvellous Equations of the Dread, a novel in bass Riddim. Have I ever sounded so white? By Marcia Douglas. Now, I picked this up in the US, in Washington. Oh God, this premise is so... Okay, listen to the premise. Reincarnated as a homeless fall down, Bob Marley sleeps in the clock tower built on the site of the lynching in a halfway tree, Kingston. The ghosts of Marcus Garvey and King Edward VII are there too, drinking whiskey and playing solitaire. Chapter 1, Leah. There is a bass line that pulses along the faults of this island, from the Blue Mountains to Santa Cruz, from Plantain Garden to Rio Minho, then travelling the coast, troubling the waters. Okay. Wow. Okay, this is written so well. They say he died with a word at the tip of his tongue, and even 300 years later is restless to remember it. He is the reason, centuries after his dancing feet and the clock tower erected in the place of the tree, that the hands of the clock always told the wrong time. I will be keeping this. It's not one I've heard a lot about in the UK, but I saw it stocked in quite a few places in the US, so I'm glad I stumbled on it, and I hopefully will read it soon because that's really good. Next one is Crushing It by Lex Croucher. Here she is. Full disclaimer, Lex is my friend. She's written this book called Crushing It that is out in June, and I really want to read it before then. It looks like a pretty quick read. It is about the positivity for living your real life. I am a self-help junkie, so I think I am going to love this. This is an excuse to really start it, to be fair. The premise for this book is quite vague, but I think if I was going to trust anybody with a premise like this, it would be Lex, because she's freaking hilarious. First sentence. Hello, whenever I hear someone say something like, change starts with you, or you are the rugged, handsome sea captain of your own future, people definitely do say that. I think to myself that it's all very well saying those things, but I can't really imagine how they'll apply to my own life. Let's go. I'm already laughing. One, absolutely have a love of people who make jokes by writing their editor jokes in the footnotes. I'm a fan of that. I'll read you a little example of it. So this is like Lex is explaining that like a lot of self-help detox tea style stuff makes her really cringy, but she still thinks that like the stuff inside is important. You can't say I'm the architect of my own destiny without cringing internally. However, I can say I'm building my own future and I will do it out of Lego, old Twiglets and blue tack if I have to. And she acknowledges that it's not always about being the best that you can be, it's sometimes just about making it to bedtime without public screaming. Well, I'm going to stop this video here so I can read the rest of this immediately. I will, obvs, be keeping that. Meet Me at the Museum. I love the premise of this book. It's by Anne Youngson. A thirst trap tailored to Lena Norms in a sentence. Sometimes it takes a stranger to know who you really are. When Tina Hopgood writes a letter of regret to a man she has never met, she doesn't expect a reply. When Anderson Larson, a lonely museum creator, answers it, neither does he. I am like a huge Lake House fan. 84 Charing Cross Road. I love books where people write to each other. That's my jam. However, I was worried that this book wouldn't live up to the hype. I kept the proof I was sent because I love the concept. But I was also like, do I want to read this book? Because I've read so many books like it. Maybe I should be branching out and not reading something so safe. But I do think this is going to be really sweet. First sentence. Dear Professor Glob, although we have never met, you dedicated a book to me once. Let's go. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a very gripping beginning. I feel like the letters are a bit staged. I'm not quite gripping the significance of the first few letters and like how they're referring to the past, which might be that I'm not like closely enough reading it, but then also like I think I should be able to grasp it from the beginning without having to be like, what? It doesn't feel very funny. I'm not. It's not. I'm sorry. The next one was given to me by a friend who is the head publisher at a publishing house called Scribe. Her an independent publisher, if you're interested. The Love of a Bad Man by Lauren Elizabeth Woolett. I'm so excited about the premise of this. 12 stories imagine the lives of real women, all of whom were lovers, wives or mistresses of various bad men in history. A schoolgirl catches the eye of a future leader of the Nazi Germany. An aspiring playwright writes to a convicted serial killer. A pair of childhood sweethearts reunite to commit rape and murder. A devoted Mormon wife follows her husband into the wilderness after he declares himself a prophet. I am absolutely darkly fascinated by this. I think the author is quite young. I love the cover, and I'm very hopeful because I think it might be really sick in both senses of the words. First sentence. Baby, wake up, he says. He's kissing my eyelids, my cheeks, trailing his fingers over the bib of my nightgown, and it's so soft it must be a dream. See, this is why I'm like, the first sentences are so important, and not because they need to be like the perfect sentence, because they give you a sense of the rhythm of a book, and I feel like the first sentence of this has a rhythm to it. It has like a spirit about it. I don't know. I just think that they're really important, and when you like read a first sentence that you're like, oh, this writer can write, then you can carry on. Okay, let's go. Okay, I've just realised this is a story collection, so there aren't going to be chapters, but I've read the first 12 pages. I think that's fair. I was going like this because the first chapter is Blanche. Her boyfriend has been in prison. It's his like first day of freedom, and they get stopped on the road and frisked and asked if they are Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, Google, who are Bonnie and Clyde?
According to Wikipedia, Bonnie Elizabeth Parker and Clyde Chestnut Barrow were American criminals who travelled the central United States with their gang during the Great Depression, known for their bank robberies.
Her boyfriend proudly professes that he is the brother of Clyde, and then they go on to meet up with Bonnie and Clyde, and her boyfriend is trying to persuade her to run away with Bonnie and Clyde. I'm intrigued. I think it's pretty well written. It's not like my favourite style, but I think it's quite nice, and I imagine that each short story is quite different, so I'm up for that. I still absolutely love the premise. I like how fast-paced it is. I will be keeping you. This is a fuckboy test. Henry David Thoreau, Walden. So this is supposed to be Walden's wandering, very deep look at why he's separating himself from the materialistic world and living alone in the wilderness and thinking about philosophy and being real deep. However, in The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer, and Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this as well, it has transpired that he wasn't actually alone in the wilderness at all. It's noted that, like, he was quite privileged and his parents, like, bought him the house or something. And then also he used to, on Sundays, he didn't live in complete solitude. On Sundays, he'd go around and see his mother and sister and get loads of nice baked goods from them and have them cook for him and stuff, and then go back to his wilderness to be super deep. So, like, I'm a bit like, do I care about reading this or not? Because so many people quote it and it sounds so beautiful that I'm like, I kind of do want to know what's in it, but I'm also, so I've always, like, tentatively kept it, like, is this notes from a fuckboy, or is it notes from your problematic fave? Let's find out, shall we? The first chapter, economy. The first sentence is, when I wrote the following pages, or rather the bulk of them, I lived alone in the woods, a mile from any neighbourhood, in a house which I had built myself on the shores of Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts, and earned my living by the labour of my hands only. Let's go. Okay, I don't know if I'm being, like, bratty and, like, millennial, but, like, it's not like I haven't read 19th century books and stuff. I don't know, I just feel really tired of reading this. It is not speaking to me, and also there's, like, weird bits that I'm like, do you mean that? He talks about slavery. There are so many keen and subtle masters that enslave both north and south. It is hard to have a southern overseer. It is worse to have a northern one, but worst of all when you are the slave driver yourself. And then talks about how it must be really hard to be a slave driver, and maybe I'm reading that wrong. Somebody might be really into Thoreau and can tell me otherwise, but, like, and obviously there are these, like, the big, like, famous quotes in it, like, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. If I don't have to, I am relieving myself of the obligation I feel to read this. Against Elections, The Case for Democracy by David Van Roebuck. I was interested in this book and picked it up at work. I featured it on the Vintage channel when we were talking about people's assemblies and the failure of democracy, especially when it came to Brexit. And I took this one home and was very intrigued by the premise. The original purpose of elections was to exclude the people from power by appointing an elite to govern over them. And, like, it's offering a different kind of democracy, I think. So I'm like, interesting. However, I've had it for a very long time and it's got this guy's face on it, and I just haven't felt, you know, when you're like, this sounds very important and also urgent, but also I will leave it 4 years before reading. Chapter 1, Symptoms. Enthusiasm and mistrust, the paradox of democracy. There is something strange going on with democracy. Everyone seems to want it, but nobody believes in it any longer, even though international statistics tell us that more and more people say they're in favour of it. Let's go. Ooh, what was that? Ooh. So excited about democracy. Absolutely pulling out truth nuggets, this book. Fucking hell. The reason often given for this increase in distrust is the apathy which results from individualism and consumerism. But it argues there is no recent decline in, like, the measure of concern about political issues. In fact, it's been measured to be greater than ever before. So it's kind of dispelling the myths that we have just become apathetic about politics, and is starting to claim that, and more it's to do with the high voter turnover, that people, once they do vote, may not vote again because they don't feel like it worked. So it's not just that there's people who will never vote and people that will always vote. Okay, this book does sound a little hard for me, but I do like what I can tell it's saying, and I think if I sat down properly and put my mind to it and, like, really took some notes, I think I would be able to learn something from it. So I would like to keep it, even though I don't think it's as accessible as I thought it was, and I would like to get to the chapter called Remedies, but maybe that is a symptom of my impatient millennial self. I want to read more translated books this year. I made a video about the translated books I read last year, and I want to keep that up. So this one is The Invoice by Jonas Carlson. Can you put a price on happiness? One man is about to find out. This one is translated from Swedish, and I picked it up because I liked the premise. Basically, it's about a man who works part-time in a video store in Stockholm. Chapter 1. It was such an incredible amount. 5,700,000 krona. Impossible to take seriously. I assumed it must be one of those fake invoices, the sort you hear about on television and in the papers. Let's go. Okay, I'm definitely going to keep this. At first I was like, I'm not sure. I finished the first chapter and was like, nothing really happened in that chapter. He was just at the video store he worked at. Cool. He got this huge invoice. and ignored it. That was the first chapter. And I was like, okay. But I had a good feeling, so I just skipped through to kind of find out a little bit more about the context of the invoice. And it appears that he goes out to buy an ice cream, overhears that everybody else has been receiving these huge invoices. So it sounds like a really weird, conceptual, stranger than fiction style story. And I think from my impression of it, he's on hold for hours and hours trying to find out what the invoice is for. And I think that everybody is being invoiced for the good experiences in their lives and like having to pay up for life, which could be like a really interesting commentary on capitalism and blah, blah, blah. So it does actually sound really up my street. So I'm glad that I didn't just take the first chapter, although like if I was an editor, I'd be like, maybe sort out the first chapter. I'm into the concept still. Jonas. I've got a better sense of what this book is about now, so I'm probably more likely to pick up soon rather than let it gather dust on my shelves forever. The Reinvention of Martha Ross by Charlene Alcott. I saw Charlene speak at an event and I thought the book sounded really cool. Meet Martha Ross. She's separated from her husband and father of 18-month-old son. She dreams of being a singer, but she works in a call centre to make ends meet. Everything has to change and everything will. I like a good woman's rom-com with her own self-esteem, so I am here for it. Let's go. Chapter 1. I think it's appropriate to begin at the end. People say it's best to start at the beginning, but I've never been a believer. I'm loyal to endings. I skip the final page of every book I read. Oh my god. This is great. Martha is very forward and strange. She's turned up to her therapist's house uninvited at 8:30 in the morning. She says, I spend 40% of every session with Jacqueline, wondering who Jacqueline really is, what she does at the weekends, if she does Pilates, if she still has sex with her husband, if her husband is in fact a wife. I'm not disappointed. So she just kind of wanders into her therapist's house being creepy, and then is like, sorry to bother you, but you said that I needed to contact you with stuff, and then asks her if she should break up with her husband, and her therapist is like, yes, I think we've discussed this, you should break up with your husband. And she's like, fair, I will do that today. And her therapist is like, please leave. And then her therapist says, okay, before you go, I can't see you again. I think some boundaries have been crossed here. And her therapist breaks up with her. And then she texts her husband. I send Alexander a text terminating our 36-year marriage. It reads, we are over. 35 seconds later, he replies, okay. This is absurd and I love it, and I can't believe I just left that on my shelf for ages. So we're at the end. 7 books won out, 3 books are going to the charity shop, and I for one think this has been an arduous but worthwhile process. I feel like I've really saved myself some time, wasted some of yours, which is my favourite thing to do on this channel. Let me know how you decide how to keep or get rid of books. We often get pulled in by the cover and the blurb, which is obviously the whole profession of publishing and what makes it great, but sometimes it once you've had a book for a while, there's only one way to find out if you're really going to like it or if it's just taking up space where your real future favourite books would be. To my patrons, the Gumption Club, I give away lots of books. I've got a big stack over there of books that I'm going to be giving to them that I know they'll really like. So if you want to keep this channel going and keep the content free for everybody else, you can become a member of the Gumption Club for a minimum of $1, I know, which includes a constant Facebook chat we have about book recommendations where almost every day somebody's being like, what book would you recommend for this? So if you're into book recommendations and chatting about books, come and join us over there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your bank holiday is good. I will see you in my next one. Frog Snog out.